Hey, so today I want to talk about the number one tool that I've found to become consistent in absolutely anything that you want to be consistent in. After yesterday's video where I talked about some of the things that I regretted being inconsistent in and talked about how I've never regretted being consistent in something I actually wanted to do, which I know sounds obvious, but our actions don't always follow what sounds obvious, right? I've never regretted being consistent in something I wanted to do, and I've often regretted being inconsistent in something I wanted to do. So, what is the biggest tool that has worked for me in actually developing consistency? Because it's a skill, it's a habit, it's kind of fundamentally, and it's. I was thinking about what some of the biggest differences between the things that I've been consistent with and the things that I've been inconsistent with. And funnily enough, the biggest thing is actually probably humility. Specifically, and this is what I want you to take away from this, start humiliatingly small. Whatever it is you're trying to build consistency with, start so small that you would feel like an absolute moron for not following through. Like, you should feel like a certifiable retard if you do not follow through on what you're asking yourself to do. It should be that insignificant. And, like, insignificance is kind of the key. Because if it's significant, your brain will put too much weight on it. And it will make it feel harder than it actually is. Make it insignificantly small. So if you're trying to start working out, if you don't work out at all, do one push-up today. And then do one push-up tomorrow. And then do one push-up the next day. Do one push-up every day. Sooner or later, you'll come across a day where you're like, all right, this is too easy. Let me do 2 or let me do 5. And then soon enough, you're doing 5 push-ups every day. Right? You could literally, as a workout plan, do 1 push-up, 1 squat, 1 crunch. And you would make progress. It would be insignificant progress, but it would be progress nonetheless. And you could do that, and then after maybe a week, you're like, all right, this is getting easy. You might even feel different after a week. If you don't work out at all, you might even feel different from 1 rep. Then up it to 2, up it to 3, up it to 5, whatever. Build incrementally, but start at such an insignificant level that, again, you would feel stupid for not doing it. The point is to eliminate your brain's ability to cope. Your brain will say, oh, 10 push-ups is too hard. Or, I don't feel like driving to the gym today. Or, gas is too expensive, I don't want to drive to the gym. No, just, you have a floor, do some push-ups. Do a push-up. Start with 1. If you look up to someone and you want to achieve something they've achieved, often what we do is we look at what they're doing and think we have to do the same thing. If you look up to Sam Sulek, you're going to think you have to go to the gym every day and do exactly what he's doing and take steroids and all that. You don't need to do any of that. Right? If you look up to Andrew Tate, you think, oh, he does 1,000 push-ups a day. I need to do 1,000 push-ups a day. No. That's not the point you should be paying attention to. It's not the 1,000 push-ups a day that makes him great. It's the fact that he does push-ups every day. If you do 2 push-ups every day, you can achieve what he's achieved with his push-ups. Because in a year, you might be doing 50 push-ups every day. In 2 years, you might be doing 150. And in 5 years, you might be doing 500 to 1,000 push-ups every day. But you need to start humiliatingly small. You need to start so small that you have no excuse not to do it. You need to start so small that you could use the habit you are trying to form to fill a moment of boredom. If you just feel bored for a second and like a little anxious and like, I don't really know what to do right now, make the habit so small that it can fill those gaps. Right? Almost make it like a little particle of water or something, so small that it can kind of fit in anywhere. Right? I can do a push-up at any time. I can fit it between anything else I'm doing. One push-up is so insignificant, I can fit it between anything else I'm trying to do. Like, I can do a push-up while a YouTube video is loading. I can probably do several. I can do a push-up while, like, the stove is heating up, while I'm making breakfast. There's no pocket, there's no gap that you cannot fit a single push-up in, or a single squat, or a single crunch. You can do it. That is what I want you to do with any habit. Make it so small that you don't even need to dedicate time to it. You just fit it in the found time. And that's another thing that you can use for building habits is found time. Like, I've been trying to read more like self-improvement books. I don't particularly enjoy reading, so I've been listening to audiobooks while I drive. It's free time. So now basically I'm doubling my time. I'm driving somewhere that I need to go while I am absorbing knowledge from a book. So I'll probably make another video on multiplying your time, because I found a few cool ways to do it, to where I'm actually even able to triple the amount of time I have during any given period. But that's a little bit more advanced. What I want you to think about is, kind of going back to yesterday's topic, how would you feel in a year if you made zero progress on this thing? Whatever it is. Could be your fitness, could be your health, could be to stop touching your penis so much, whatever it is, right? Whatever thing you're trying to progress on, how are you going to feel in a year if you make zero progress on that? You know, the kind of annual thing is kind of in my head, because, again, it's been a year since I left my old job, and I've thought about the progress I've made in some areas and the progress I haven't made in others. It's been a year to the day since I left my old job, and I'm not going to get into the details about that in this video, but I'm a martial arts instructor. I've been teaching for well over a decade, and I left my old job, and suddenly left my old job, and within a year I've started my own school, and I'm making the same money I was making teaching there, working about a third of the hours, which is incredible. And there are other areas of my life I've made precisely zero progress in. And after yesterday's video, I really got thinking about that, and I was like, I've made so much, like, genuinely incredible, massive progress in certain areas of my life, and I've made zero progress, or very little, very insignificant progress in others. And the key thing was consistency and humility. Am I doing something that I can do every day? And am I doing it in a way that it is small enough for me to handle? You know, you're not as great as you think you are, unfortunately. It's funny, we're like, in some ways we're so much more capable than we think we are, and in some ways we're so much less capable than we think we are. What I found is that long term, macro, we're so much more capable than we think we are. I would have never thought that and it's been a year, but my school's only been open for almost 7 months. So I would have never thought that in 6 or 7 months I could build a school, a martial arts school, to the point it's at. But I find that in the short term, in the micro, we overestimate our abilities. We underestimate in the long term. You know, you can do way more in a year than you think. But we overestimate in the short term. You can't do as much today as you think you could do today. Like, not nearly as much. So if you just start with the tiny microscopic stuff, that's why Jordan Peterson says to clean your room. That's why it's like the first piece of advice he gives if you want to improve your life is just clean your room, because it's small. Pick one thing up. If you've got a water bottle on your floor, or a cup, or dirty laundry that needs to go in the basket, like one tiny thing a day, that's it. Just start with that. Those things will snowball. They will eventually snowball into bigger and bigger and bigger things. So I want you to pick something this is what I'm doing as well. I'm constantly doing this, and I'm trying to be more consistent, ironically, about doing this. Pick something you want to do, and then find the smallest unit of measurement that you can do it in. Okay? So from there, just do that over and over and over again. If you move 1 inch at a time, you do that 12 times and you've moved a foot. You do that, I don't know how many feet are in a mile, but however many times, and you've moved a mile. If you say, I want to travel a mile, I don't know how to move a mile. I can only move 2 or 3 feet at a time. I don't know how to move a mile. You're going to get overwhelmed, and it seems it's a silly example. It's like, well, of course I can't move a mile in a single stride. That's exactly the point. I can move 2 or 3 feet at a time. So if I just take one step at a time, I will eventually get there. So don't worry so much about the result. And this is what I've found has worked for me. When I am worried about the results, I don't get them. When I just do the little thing every day and don't really care about the long term as much, I have much more success. Ironically, what this has kind of led to in my life is the things that I care about the most, I don't have. And the things that I don't care so much about, I have. And it's because with the things that I care about so much, I'm constantly thinking about the result. I'm constantly thinking about the end goal. I want to be in crazy physical shape. I want this success with women. I want this success financially, whatever it is. And those things don't come to me because I'm not focused on the process. I'm focused on, I want the result. I want the result. Whereas with other things, when I've been focused on the process, like starting my school, I was just focused on, all right, what do I do today to get the school going? Like, yeah, I want the result, but like let's just focus on the work I have to do today. It happened effortlessly. Like starting at my own school, my own martial arts school, was legitimately one of the easiest things I've ever done in my entire life. It was genuinely effortless. Like I did not actually have to put in any effort. I had to dedicate time, but I didn't really put in any effort. And this kind of gets into, I was talking about audiobooks. I'm listening through right now a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. Absolutely fantastic book. I'd highly recommend everyone listen to it or read it if you prefer to read. And it talks about how effort isn't necessarily your friend. And you can accomplish things effortlessly. And I'm sure there's something that you're good at, like kind of natural at, that's effortless for you. The goal is to make as many of those as many of the things that you're trying to do, as many of your habits, as effortless as possible. Because effort is exhausting, and your brain doesn't want to do effort. Your brain wants to preserve as much energy as possible. It wants to be as energy efficient as possible. Effort is counterproductive to that. So it's going to minimize effort. It's only going to use effort for things it deems necessary for survival. If you can find a way to make things virtually or literally effortless, you will be able to do them, right? You can use any example. One push-up, taking a shower in the morning, cleaning your, like, whatever it is. I'm sure there are a ton of things in your life that you don't even think about doing. They're just natural and effortless for you. The goal is to make more things natural and effortless like that by starting so small. It's the only way you can do that. If you want something to become effortless, you need to start with so small that it's almost effortless. And then you use a little bit of willpower, because willpower is a very finite resource. You don't have as much willpower as you think you do. And the people you look up to, they don't rely on willpower. They rely on habit. They rely on habit and consistency. They rely on willpower to start, and then from there it's habit and consistency. Even if they don't feel like doing the thing, they still have the habit and they've built the consistency. They're not using willpower on a daily basis to do everything they do. They may still have greater willpower reserves than you and I, but they're not using willpower on a daily basis. They're using willpower to start. It's like the ignition. It starts the engine, but willpower is not the fuel. All right, it's like a lighter. It starts the fire, but it's not Yeah, it's not going to constantly supply the flame. It's not going to constantly supply the fuel. That's how you get burnt out. All right, the analogy kind of works. That's how you get burnt out, is by using willpower all the time for everything. If you instead only use willpower to begin the initial stages and then make it into a habit, that's why you start small, because it's easier to maintain the habit, but it also requires less willpower to even start. One push-up does not require that much willpower. Right? If I tell you, do one push-up right now, it's like, all right, that's not that hard, I can do that. It uses a tiny bit, let's say it uses one willpower point, right? But if I say you need to do 100 push-ups a day, that might use 1,000 willpower points. Right? It's not a linear thing. Harder things require way more willpower. But if you start with one push-up and then every week add one more push-up, or go to 5, go to 10, whatever it is, it's cheaper, right? It's cheaper that way to start infinitesimally small, humiliatingly small, and then build up gradually over time. It'll save you on willpower, it'll save you on stress, it'll be easier to start, and it'll be easier to maintain. And just the smallest thing you can find. The smallest. It doesn't even need to be something that you would be proud of. Right? You don't need to be proud that you did one push-up. It's kind of lame. But you should be proud that you did push-ups. You don't have to be proud, oh, I did 5 push-ups. Maybe that's not something you feel like being proud of. That's okay. You should be proud that you did push-ups. And you didn't do push-ups yesterday, but you did push-ups today. That's something you should be proud of. It's because the volume of the habit, like how much you do in any given session, is a byproduct. Because what you actually want to do is you want to retrain your brain to get that satisfaction, to get that dopamine from those positive habits. But your brain is constantly making a cost-reward calculation. And if you set the barrier to entry too high, and you ask it, hey, I need to do 100 push-ups today, or whatever it is, it's going to go, that's way too expensive, and it's not very rewarding, right? It costs this much willpower to do that, and I get this much dopamine from it. Bad idea. We're not doing that. That's what your brain's going to say. Whereas, if you say, hey, let's do 1 push-up today, or 5 or 10 or whatever, like the humiliatingly small amount is for you. But if you're not working out at all, I'd recommend 1, because it's just the least amount of push-ups you can do. Let's do 1 push-up today. And your brain might be like, all right, well, that doesn't really cost any willpower. And maybe it'll get us a little dopamine. I don't know, let's try it. You do 1, and you actually get a little dopamine. You feel a little bit better. You're like, wow, okay, I actually did that, and that was actually not so bad. Like, yeah, it hurt a little bit. My muscles feel a little weird. But I did it. And I'm proud of myself, because I did the push-ups I was supposed to do today. Then you start to build a positive feedback loop. And that's really what this is about. It's about just starting so you can start building the positive feedback loop. If you set the barrier to entry too high, you won't be able to just start, and you won't be able to build a positive feedback loop. Habits are not about the volume of the habit you do. It's about building and maintaining a positive feedback loop so that volume comes as a byproduct. If you train yourself through this method to, for example, enjoy doing push-ups, enjoyment is literally, in this context, in this sense, enjoyment is literally just, I'm getting more dopamine than energy and willpower it costs for me to do the thing. Like the cost-reward ratio is beneficial to me. It's something my brain likes. That's roughly speaking what enjoyment is. There's a little more to it than that, but kind of grossly speaking, that's kind of what it comes down to. So if you get to the point where you have a positive cost or reward to cost ratio, right? So the reward is greater than the cost. You're going to start wanting to do it. You're going to look forward to your daily 5 push-ups or 10 push-ups. And you're going to eventually want to do more, because eventually those 10 push-ups, it's a positive addiction cycle. It's like if you're addicted to pornography, let's say. Eventually, one video at a time doesn't cut it. You watch 30 seconds of one video, then you go to a new video because it's not stimulating enough anymore. Or you spend more, you don't watch for half an hour, you watch for an hour. Or you watch something that's more intense, right? It becomes this negative feedback loop where you need harder or stronger and stronger stimuli in order to get the same dopaminergic result. It's the same thing the other way around. You can do, your brain doesn't know the difference between positive and negative sources of dopamine because before technology, we didn't have negative sources of dopamine. They weren't readily available. You couldn't get cheap dopamine before this damn thing. So you had to go do something productive. Now you have multiple ways of getting dopamine, so you actually have a choice. It's kind of like the tree in the Garden of Eden, right? A little bit. So you can get yourself addicted to doing positive things, addicted to working out. If you get that dopamine, if you get that reward to cost ratio positive, so you get more reward than the cost, then you can start to basically hook yourself on whatever habit you want. You just have to make it more rewarding than it is costly, whatever it is. That's the secret. You have to make whatever you're trying to do more rewarding than it is costly. And there's ways to kind of help this along and trick yourself a little bit, but those things are you shouldn't rely on those. Those are little things you can add. Maybe I'll make a video sometime on tricks you can do and other stuff, but that's not really the point of this video, and that's not really the core of this. It's the icing on the cake. It's extra stuff you can do if you're really struggling, but it's not where I want you to start because you'll go to that because it seems easier, even though it's really not. So you need to get that positive reward to cost ratio. A couple ways to do that. Make it as cheap as possible, so reduce the cost. This is simple economics. Reduce the cost, so make it as easy as possible. Start with one push-up. Start with driving to the gym and signing up, and then just go home, right? Start with one set of an exercise in the gym. If it's your diet, start with maybe, again, instead of cereal for breakfast, have 2 eggs or whatever, right? Just start with tiny, you don't need to change your whole diet today, right? Maybe you're eating processed frozen garbage all the time or fast food all the time. Maybe you decide, you know what, I'm going to have, instead of cereal for breakfast, I'm going to have 2 eggs for breakfast. I'm going to scramble them, and that's my breakfast, and I'm just going to do that for a month. And I'm not going to change anything else. I'm just going to change that for a month. And then you'll notice how much better you feel. And then, okay, well, maybe I'll get some ground beef and make burgers at home instead of fast food for lunch. Or I'll pack something healthy or whatever. Or I'll make a different choice at, I'll pick a different fast food place, or I'll pick something a little healthier, whatever it is. Tiny, tiny things. And if you can make that cost to reward ratio, if you can make that positive in your favor at a low level, then you can just scale that. Right? It's kind of, it's not necessarily infinitely scalable, but it's highly scalable. So if you can get to the point where doing your 5 or 10 push-ups a day feels good, your brain is going to start thinking, just like you want to go deeper with any addiction. You need to drink more to get the same feeling. You need to watch porn more to get the same feeling. Same thing applies here. So if you do 10 push-ups, maybe after a week, the 10 push-ups, or 2 weeks, the 10 push-ups you don't feel quite the same after. You feel fine. You don't feel worse, but it doesn't give you the same kind of high that doing the 10 push-ups used to give you. Now you do 15. Oh, that felt good. That felt better. That felt like I remember. Maybe then you go up to 20. Oh, that feels really, really good. Again, it's the same mechanism that has created whatever addictions or vices you may have in your life. It's the same mechanism you can now manipulate to actually make your life better. This works for anything, right? Again, if it works for all your addictions and all the negative things that we have at our fingertips in the world we live in, why wouldn't it work for the positive things? Why wouldn't it work for push-ups, for exercise, for working out? Why wouldn't it work for eating healthy? It can work for anything. Why wouldn't it work for cold approaching girls? Why wouldn't it work for starting your own business? Right? The amount of dopamine, I can feel it. The amount of dopamine I get from working on my business, from working on my school, it is genuinely the most satisfying thing in the world to me. I love teaching classes at my school. I love the high I get when I get an email, when I get a form submission for the inquiry form on my website. The high I get is unreal. I feel so happy and fulfilled. It's not like it's not the kind of high you get when you indulge in something negative, though. It's like it has that aspect to it, that kind of dopaminergic aspect, but you also get this like fulfillment, like it fills up your chest, like I feel like I'm glowing. It's wonderful because the positive addictions, right? The positive habits that you can build, they have these other benefits to them as well. So you can actually get all the benefits that you would get from the negative stuff from the positive stuff by using the same mechanism that you use with the negative stuff to build those negative habits. You just use it with the positive stuff. So I hope that makes sense. I kind of had an epiphany halfway through this video, and I wanted to like, all right, I'm gonna follow that, because funny actually. Speaking of doing the little things, I recorded this video already and I didn't like it, so I decided to record it again. And kind of halfway through, I put two and two together there and had that epiphany. So I hope that's helpful for you. At the very least, it's helpful for me. Again, I'm doing these videos as a way for me to process what I'm working on in my own personal development journey. And I think that sharing these thoughts, it's very good for me. And even if one person in the world watches this video and finds it helpful, it made the half hour I spent recording this worth it. So to review, because I know my brain works in kind of a stream of consciousness, so it's not always easy to retain. So I want to do a little bit of a review. Start whatever habit you want to build, and I would pick one at a time. You can do multiple, but I'd pick one at a time if you're really having trouble. Start humiliatingly small. Start so small that you feel stupid for not doing it. Do it every day, even if it's something like working out, where they say, "Oh, you should only work out 3 days a week, or 4 days. You can only give yourself enough rest." We're not doing enough volume for you to need that much rest. 24 hours or 16 hours if you do it at a different time, some days, whatever. It's enough rest for now. You're not doing very much volume. Start humiliatingly small. Build the positive feedback loop. Start to get hooked on it. Start to get addicted to the new positive habit on a small scale, and then slowly scale it up. Don't scale it up so fast that the cost begins to outweigh the reward. Scale it up slowly so that the reward can keep up with the cost. Because remember, reward happens after cost. So you need to move the cost up slowly so that the reward doesn't fall behind. And then just keep going. And don't be afraid to continue to move slowly. I fixed my diet over the course of like 3 years. 2 or 3 years. I gradually fixed my diet. Actually, it was longer than that, really. But it was like, I don't feel good. I'm sleeping 12 hours a day. What if I had bacon and eggs for breakfast instead of, I don't even know what I was eating, hot dogs or frozen pizza or whatever. Instead of that, I think it was pizza most times. Instead of pizza, let me have bacon and eggs every day. All right. I did that for like a year. Still having pizza, taquitos, whatever else for dinner. All right. Now let's fix my dinner. Let's have something else, something healthier for dinner. And now I have a pretty solid diet 4 whatever years later. All right. So again, start humiliatingly small. Build up extremely gradually. Make sure the reward continues to consistently outweigh the cost. And if you mess up and you miss a day, don't beat yourself up about it. Don't worry about it, because that's just going to make it cost more to do the next time. Just pick back up where you left off. All right? So I hope that was helpful. And if you have any questions or thoughts, let me know. And hope you have a great day and make some good progress.